Hello viewers, my name is Kevin. I've been a professional basketball player for many years, but now I am an indie game developer and this is the second devlog. You may remember that in the last episode I arranged a preventive accident for my lying and fraudulent test player character, Bob. He did not suspect a thing and he still thought we were friends when the truth hit him. But now I'm left without a PC, so I started creating a new one, a real one this time. And I know the critics, they love their three-dimensional characters, but that's certainly an aspect where my game's going to fall flat, because I'll be using 2D characters. It is way faster to just draw a character instead of having to model, unwrap and texture one in 3D. The problem is I'm not good at drawing. Especially drawing humans is insanely difficult for me. Nevertheless, I went to work on a lady called Marupi, my first draft of a real player character. I battled my incompetence with vast amount of reference like books and 3D models and a lot of time. It takes a skilled artist 3 brush strokes and a minute of shading to produce something that looks good. And it took me 2 days to make both of Marupi's eyes look like they belong to the same person. After I finished drawing Marupi, she was even more stiff than I was during my wedding dance. She needed some animations. But traditional 2D animation, also known as flipbook animation, it requires you to draw each frame of each motion individually for each character and each outfit. I have neither the skill nor the time for that. That's why I prefer my game characters the same way my wife prefers fried chicken, with bones. Using skeletal animation allows me to stick a character's body parts onto a skeleton and then animate that skeleton with standard keyframe methods, the same way you would do it with a 3D character. Just pose the skeleton by rotating the bones, move a little bit along the timeline, pose it again, and there is the animation. The skeleton and animation can even be reused for multiple characters. That way I only have to draw each character once in a base pose and animate it once. At that point I realized that Marupi did not look the way I wanted her to look. From her backstory in the game, she comes from a place far, far away. She's a stranger in a strange land, and I wanted to reflect that in her design. Looking a bit different would also make her stand out more if she was on screen with a bunch of non-player characters. She also needed some proper clothes. Keeping her in her underwear was really beneficial for the character setup, but in the game she would probably freeze to death or make all the men forget the dialogue lines. I wished there was an alternative way to solve our issues, but there wasn't. Standing on the corpse of her predecessor, Marupi had an accident. For me, that meant back to the drawing board. Marupi too had darker skin, pitch black hair, and somehow she just looked less generic and more like the protagonist of a story. Before I finished her design and the design of her clothes, I did some testing to see if the character setup and the animations would work with the new outfit. They did not. Marupi too was a flickering, legless mess with a limp and a broken skeleton. I tried to fix her, but to no effect. It's true what they say, people don't change. And it's also true that if you learn something from scratch and do everything for the very first time, it's probably not going to turn out perfectly. Marupi 2 was supposed to be the most important person in the game. Her skeleton and animations would be reused by all the other female characters. If I covered her problems up now, they would come back to bite me in the ass over and over. You guessed it. I sent Marupi 2 to go smell the purple flowers. For me, that meant back to the drawing board once again, and also back to the skeleton board, the rigging board, and the animations board. allow myself to introduce Maud. Maud is more detailed than Marupi 2. Maud is flicker-free and has all the bones in the right places. But Maud did not make it easy. When I set her skeleton up in addition to regular bones, I also gave her IK chains. And IK stands for inverse kinematics. Give me a sec here to explain what that means. So, from a mechanical perspective, your upper arm determines where your lower arm goes. Your lower arm determines where your hand goes, etc., because they are attached to each other. There is a kinematic hierarchy from the spine over the shoulder down to the fingers of the hand. But when you move in your mind, you don't follow that hierarchy. For example, you want to grab some water. You do not think lean forward and rotate the shoulder, move the upper arm and stretch the elbow. You think hand, go there in a straight line, and you let your brain sort out all the individual rotations of the bones. The subconscious part of you is pretty smart. And that's where the IK chain comes in. It replicates that behavior and allows for a more natural way of animating by positioning an IK target like the hand, while the rotations of the higher level bones in the arm are automatically calculated. It's a great tool and it drove me mad. The problem is that minor changes in the IK target's position can massively influence how that movement is split up between the two bones of the limb. Take, for example, the leg. I move the foot just a tiny bit, but it results in a massive change of the angle of the thigh. When I create a couple of keyframes for an animation, the foot itself moves smoothly, but the resulting motion of the thigh is very irregular. It can almost stay in place while the foot moves, then make a big jump, or sometimes even move backwards again. And that made it almost impossible to get a smooth animation, say, for a walk cycle. So I was looking for a way to manually control the rotation of the thigh bone, but then I thought, wait, the whole point of this IK chain thing is that I don't have to set up the bones individually. Then I decided to disable the IK for some parts of some animations, but IK animations and non-IK animations don't blend properly. By the way, I have no significant animation experience, and from my perspective it's one of the more unpleasant tasks in game development. If I'm completely missing a point here and the solution is super obvious to you, please let me know. And I mean that, drop a comment right now and help me out of my misery. In the end, I managed to create a couple of somewhat decent animations, but took a lot of stubbornness to get there. Now Maud can walk the dangerous grounds of the test level. She can also run and jump, which will make it quite hard to get rid of her if I ever need to. But at the moment I'm pretty happy with her. And with a real player character in place, this project is starting to feel like an actual game. See you next time.